Hello and welcome to this conversation about Decolonizing Mission. Decolonizing Mission is the title of the latest book from Dr. Harvey Kwiyani, who I'll be speaking to about the book and having a conversation about the book with today. Dr. Harvey is the director of the Act 11 project, alongside leading the African Christianity stream of the Pioneer Mission Training Program at CMS in Oxford. Xavier is also the executive director of Missio Africanus, a mission organization that was started, that was, I think, about 10 years ago. Is that right, Dr. Abe?
Yes.
Yes. So today we want to get into a conversation about your new book. I've known you for a few years, and if there's anything I've known is that you've always wanted to write something about decolonizing mission. And so that naturally begs my first question. Why did you write the book?
Thank you. It's so good to have a chance to talk with you on the book. And yes, we've been friends for not just a few years, quite some time now. And the conversation around decolonizing mission has always been in the background. I remember one time we drove to Scotland together and we were talking about decolonizing mission. It's quite a few years ago. This is before COVID. This is probably back in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And so, this has been fermenting in the background in my mind for quite some time. And I'm really grateful that I finally got a chance to sit down and write the book. 3 things made me write the book. The first one is really just a simple conviction that what Jesus set up in the book of, in the Gospels, in Luke, in Matthew, even as we cross over into Acts, really is a mission that involves the sending of a colonized people. And he sends them really still as colonized people. He doesn't take them to the heart of the empire so they can operate from Rome. No, he sends them from Jerusalem. And these are Galileans that will later be called uneducated, uncultured Galileans.
Indeed.
But he sends them and makes it possible for really people at the margins, people who have no power, people who have no money, to be part of what God is doing in the world. Gives them the right, gives them the power to go and share the good news of Jesus with others without colonizing people. When we look at mission history, especially in the past 2 centuries, but we can go back 5 centuries, we can go back the 4 centuries, mission has been largely tied to colonization, imperial powers coming in, colonizing people and Christianizing them at the same time. The term civilizing mission has been used quite liberally and quite greatly over the past 200-300 years because, of course, mission had an aspect of civilizing people with it. And that act of civilizing people often meant colonization, right? And a very simple example of this is David Livingstone's 3 C's, Christianity, commerce, and civilization. And those 3 things work together to bring the African, whatever they want to do, like make the African Christian, but also civilize them and bring in a new form of trade in order to free the African from slave trade. But really, David Livingstone himself realized that actually for this to work, the British had to be in charge. And therefore, the British needed to colonize parts of Africa in order to fulfill the mission of the 3 C's. Livingstone himself would then have connections with Henry Morton Stanley, 1870s, and Henry Morton Stanley would then go on to really take the Congo for King Leopold of Belgium. A direct connection between Livingstone and King Leopold through Henry Stanley. Mission and colonization really working hand in hand. And so that's one of the things that made me write the book. I'm just thinking of a mission from the aspect of the colonized. And it really looks like, yes, it could not be done without colonization. But the second part is that I come from Malawi. I come from a place called Magomero in Malawi. Magomero was the first British mission station in Malawi. The university's mission to Central Africa came to Magomero in 1861. By 1892, the land that was given to the university's mission to Central Africa at Magomero was purchased by David Livingstone's daughter, Agnes. And then they would set up a whole colonial estate, the Alexander Livingstone Bruce Estate, sometimes just called Bruce Estate. And that piece of land would be the epicenter of colonial violence in Malawi. It's the Livingstone's family, David Livingstone's daughter, and then David Livingstone's daughter's son, Alexander, with a cousin of the family, William Jervis Livingstone. And the violence that was unleashed on the people of Malawi, on the people of Southern Malawi, on the people of Magomero from that estate is still unimaginable until today. And in that simple story, that story of that one place, that story of Magomero, we see mission and colonization working hand in hand. Now, when I talk about this, the story of Magomero is really just one among thousands of places that have experienced something similar. Magomero is just one of the many. Magomero is in Malawi, but when you talk about this to the Kikuyus of Kenya, they'll have similar stories. And when you talk about this to some people in Ghana, Nigeria, they have similar stories. South Africa, Zimbabwe, they have similar stories. And such that to us on the receiving end of this thing called mission, for many of us, for many Africans, mission and colonization seem to be two sides of the same coin. The Kikuyus from Kenya have a saying that says there's no difference between a missionary and a colonizer. So it's something that we need to talk about. It's a history of where we've come from. It's a history of our it's part of our story. And that means we can't just sweep it under the carpet. If the body of Christ today is going to be what it is, that includes all peoples from all nations around the world, we need to talk about this history. We can't pretend it didn't happen. That's why I wrote the book.
Thank you. Very comprehensive response. And from what you've shared, I'm beginning to then wonder, because on the one hand, this thing called mission, as we have understood it, especially in many parts of, I'm speaking from my context of origin in Nigeria, many people would think the way mission has been done, like this is how it should always be. We don't necessarily, especially for my generation, that are quite distanced away from that history of entanglement with colonialism in all of its forms and shades and colors in those earlier decades. This is all we've known, and it looks like it's working in some sense. And so I'm wondering how in the book you begin to challenge us to rethink that, and if you want to unpack that. And the other thing I'm hoping you'll touch on as well is that very word mission in itself. I know that in the book you did a very good job of actually helping us to understand the origin and the history behind the word, and which can in some sense begin to even answer that earlier question about why we need to begin to rethink this altogether.
Sure. Thank you. The word mission comes from a Latin word, missio, and it means to send. But in the Roman Latin world, missio is not just about sending, it's about sending of soldiers, dispatch of soldiers. So it's already, in its Roman context, in its original context, it's already tied to militarism. It's about a dispatch of soldiers to conquer other people. The way we use it today, as in sending people to evangelize other people, really emerges in the 1500s, 1540s, 1550s. And it comes from the Jesuits. The Jesuits were really launched in the 1540s. And the Jesuits, as an association, as a society, they were founded and originally led by an ex-soldier, Ignatius of Loyola. And when he writes his original documents, it's clear that he's thinking as a soldier. The original document of the Jesuits starts with a line that says, "Whoever wants to be a soldier for God." That's the first line. That's the introduction to the document. So he's thinking as a soldier, and he will, in that document, he will say the Jesuits are going to be a militia for Christ. And he uses the word militia twice. And I think that it's that military aspect of the word that has gone on to shape a great deal of what we think mission today. And in the 50s, this word and its military context made sense to some extent, because in the 50s, the Roman Catholic Church was still reacting to the Reformation of Martin Luther that had started in 1517, but still they were still reacting to the fall of Constantinople in 1453. So the whole doctrine of Christian militarism and Christianity was front and center of their thinking. As a result, mission had to try and be part of that story. That the original missionaries, at least in the Jesuit context, were people who would be sent by the Pope, more like a personal army, to go do what the Pope wanted done. And as a result, even until today, the way we use the word mission, the way it is understood has some militaristic connotations with it. I mean, a great deal of our mission language is rooted in military language. We talk about mobilization. We talk about deploying. We talk about crusades. I mean, if you're in Africa, a Pentecostal in Africa, the word crusade is thrown every day, everywhere. You talk about crusades all the time. That's the military nature of the word, really shaping the way we do things. Over against that, I wonder really if Jesus had ever said to his disciples, "I want to be my soldiers," what would happen? In the context of his time, if he said, "I want you to be my soldiers," the Romans would come and terminate that movement straight away without delay, right? Because he knew what he needed were not soldiers. What he needed were disciples who would go make other disciples. How we have shifted from let's go make disciples to I'm a soldier for Christ. I mean, when I talk about this, when I make presentations about this, I use a Nigerian song that's come out a few years ago. That says, "I'm a soldier in the army. If the Lord calls me, I will answer 1 billion times." I mean, I don't think Jesus would want that. He's not calling us to be his soldiers. That's just military language grounded in the Western understanding of mission. What Jesus really called us to do is to go and make disciples for him, rooted in love, rooted in compassion, rooted in humility and weakness, and rooted in the power of the Spirit, not in the power of the army or not the power of the empire. And so for the younger generation of Africans who have not really processed the power of colonialism in their own countries, in their own context, and they think that mission is about conquest, I challenge them. This is not what God is doing in the world. He's not calling us to conquer people. I mean, the bottom line of the book is the argument that God's mission does not colonize. It actually decolonizes. This is what Jesus is doing when he says, "I have been sent. The Spirit of the Lord anointed me so that I can bring good news to the poor. And I can set the captives free." He's talking to a colonized people, and he's saying, "I've come to bring good news to you." And that good news is that Jesus and not the emperor is in charge. Is about Jesus and his good news, and not the good news of Rome or Tiberius or Augustus. And I think that's something that we need to process. I see a great deal of African Christians here in Europe, in North America, who think that mission is what the Europeans did in our countries. And therefore, we can't think about mission without conquest, mission without colonization. My friends here in the UK will say, if the British are going to follow Christ like us, they need to stop doing this, they need to stop doing that, they need to stop doing that. The same things that the British did when they came to Africa. And that's not going to work. Really, we need to rethink a great deal of what we call mission today. That's why I think one of my final chapters of the book is called "We Need a New Missiology." We need to rethink this thing. Let's go back to really what Jesus wanted us to do. Go around the world and make disciples for him, not conquering people, not depending on empires, just really vulnerable community, making disciples who make other disciples.
Thank you. Interesting response. My Pentecostal identity also then is going on the one and thinking about, as you are giving that response, spiritual warfare. Because I'm asking myself, how did we get here? How did we come to this point where to think of mission is to think of conquest? And one of the easy answers in my mind is, of course, we also see all of these as, we're engaging in spiritual warfare. And for us, that looks like you're fighting, the devil and his cohorts, and you have to be aggressive about that. But yeah, I'm just wondering, where's the balance with Pentecostalism, especially African Pentecostalism, and mission in this new dynamic or this new way of thinking about mission that is rooted in vulnerability, vis-a-vis, being empowered by the Spirit to advance the cause of the kingdom of God? And I know I'm beginning to use the very same military language you're talking about, but yeah, how do we manage that?
I mean, I think there is a difference in there ought to be a difference in the way we understand this. I'm an African, just like you, grew up around Pentecostals, just like you. the language of spiritual warfare, it is almost native to our Christianity.
Indeed.
And I think there's space for us to wrestle with spirit beings, spirit powers that want to shape the world a certain way. But there is a difference between us contending with principalities and powers and us contending with people. So we should be able to wrestle with principalities and powers, yes. But that's different from conquering people, right? And really, what does conquest look like in this talk of mission? It will look like really telling people that the only way they can be good Christians is if they behave like us, if they think like us. I mean, in the African context, things went as far as you can't use your African names. You can't live in your neighborhoods anymore. You can't be an African and be a Christian for a long time, right? And this, I mean, actually, this is a question that the first groups of African theologians wrestled with. Yes, we love the gospel, we love the Bible, but do we really need to become Christians in order to follow Christ? And of course, the answer is no, because if we go back to the Bible, we go back to the Acts, there is no requirement for the Gentiles to become Jews in order to follow Christ. This is a principle of translation and indigenization of Christianity that happens every time Christianity encounters a new culture. And so that whole mess of if you are going to follow Christ, we need to civilize you. You need to be civilized like us so you can behave like us, you can think like us, you can begin to use our language. No, that doesn't work, right? And that's part of the colonial violence that Decolonizing Mission is wrestling with. That people can follow Christ and remain who they are, culturally where God has placed them, and begin to think about how best to follow Christ in that culture. Yeah.
Thank you. Also, I know that, I mean, one of your previous roles, you've led a mission organization. I mean, you still continue to be the executive director of Missio Africanus. So
Sure.
rooted in mission and sending forth. So I'm wondering, with your experience in that space as well, how do you think mission organizations that maybe had always understood mission as, sending missionaries or mission partners or whatever language we use for that, to places around the world, how can they begin to rethink some of those practices in view of a decolonized mission that is not rooted in empire?
I mean, there's a lot to talk about there. I'll just give one example. If we shift from the imperial ways of doing mission and begin to see what God is doing around the world today, we will realize that actually God's people, bearers of the good news of Christ, are moving from every part of the world to every part of the world.
Absolutely.
Right? The work of Christian migrants in the sharing of the good news around the world, that has been foundational to the spread of Christianity for the past 2,000 years. Mission agencies are less than 200, 300 years old. Christian migrants have been central to the taking of the good news to the world for the whole 2,000 years of Christianity's existence. Really, if we decolonize the way we think about mission, we will begin to see that actually, yes, of course, the South Africans coming to the UK are bringing the good news, just as much as the British people are going to Nigeria. And the Brazilians coming to Portugal and then moving to Oxford are just part of what God is doing around the world today. It's not just about the sending of the West to the rest. That era is gone. We are in an era now where mission is from everywhere to everywhere. And it's not really about mission agencies anymore, right? I mean, the dispersion of the African Christian, the RCCG, a very good example, Redeemed Christian Church of God from Nigeria, started in 1952, now present in almost every country in the world. And it's not like the RCCG has a mission agency sending Nigerians to other countries to be missionaries. It's just the dispersion of the Nigerian Christian that makes that possible. The African missionary movement, to a great extent, will not need mission agencies. It's just going to be African Christians moving from one place to another. And that doesn't mean that mission agencies don't have space in that discourse. But maybe that work, that space will be to come along these people as they migrate, right? Resource them, equip them, empower them, and let them do whatever God has called them to do wherever they are. Right? There is a lot of heritage, a lot of knowledge, a lot of resources in mission agencies. That actually, if people opened up and realized that actually the Africans carrying their Bibles in their backpacks and moving up and down the world, the Latin Americans, the Asians, including the Westerners, as they move up and down the world, they are part of God's mission. How do we resource them? That would create a new good way of collaboration between and help those mission agencies become even more relevant. So I'm not saying it's curtain time for mission agencies, but they need to realize that the world has changed.
Okay.
It's from everywhere to everywhere now, and so let's find ways to work together. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. To bring the conversation to a close, at least for now, this will continue to be an ongoing conversation, I imagine, as mission continues to happen all around us every time. And the decolonizing agenda is just a conversation that is just starting in a sense. But then what's your hope in terms of, people that buy the book, read the book? What's your hope of what they do with the knowledge and insights that they will be gleaning from the book?
There are quite a few things. One is that they begin to realize that mission really doesn't describe what Jesus has called us to do, at least the way we talk about mission today. And actually, maybe I would hope that some would go as far as realizing that mission in its military sense doesn't really work for the 21st century world. So we need to find new language to describe what we are doing in the world today. I had a podcast a few months ago with Zach Niringia, a Ugandan scholar who really deconstructed the mission and began to argue that actually there are other better ways that we can use. Words like witness, bearing witness, and words like pilgrims and sojourners in the world instead of missionaries, or things like that. So I'm hoping that people will begin to take that conversation seriously. 1, 2, I then hope that we will begin to realize that yes, what God has called us to do in the world doesn't require empires backing us. And that will, at least in the 21st century world, release us the African church, release us the Latin American church, release us the Asian church to actually fully engage in God's mission in the world. That African Christians from poor countries can be part of what God is doing in the world just as much as the British and the American Christians. And I hope that gives, that makes an argument that allows people to get some confidence that what they are doing is what God has called them to do, that they don't necessarily need the backing of New York or Atlanta or Dallas, Texas, in order to be missionaries in the world. That you can be sent from Lilongwe and have some impact in another part of the world without all the financial backing that comes with empires. So there is that. But also just that, this whole thing is really to be built in humility. And not in the confidence and pride of empires. Jesus models this for us in that, of course, Philippians 2, being the Son of God, he did not take advantage of that to show power in the world. He laid his life down. He came down, became a human, became a slave on our behalf so that we could belong at the table. And really, if we think about mission in a post-colonial world, mission that allows the whole body of Christ to participate, it has to be grounded in humility. And that allows all of us to participate. Right? Otherwise, it becomes something that only certain people can do. Yeah, I think there are quite a few things, but let me stop there for now. I know we're beginning to run out of time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting and enlightening conversation. And we hope to pick it up from here some other time to continue that conversation with you. And again, as you've anticipated, hopefully these sort of conversations will begin to happen in various other contexts out there as we all seek to keep joining in what God is doing in our respective contexts and localities and locations to the glory of God. Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.